Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a busy highway at peak hours. Cars honking at each other, drivers weaving in and out. Every single lane is overflowing with vehicles, everyone rushing towards the exit. Sounds familiar, right? This chaos, this confusion, this stress. We all have at some point of time faced this in our life. Complete clutter. Each and every day we take so much of information, may it be from social media, from presentations, meetings, conversations, books. So it's all out there. So many ideas, so many thoughts, but then everything is unorganized, just like that busy highway. And what if I told you that there is a way to turn that chaos into absolute clarity, where each and every thoughts flow in a very calm manner, in a very organized manner, and every idea has its own path? Sounds impossible, right? But in the next few minutes, we will explore how it is possible with visual thinking. In the next 10 minutes, we will explore together how visual thinking and particularly mind mapping can transform your mental clutter into clarity. Research from the University of California suggests that 65% of the people are visual learners, and our brain processes images 60,000 times faster. Yes, let me repeat that. Our brain processes information 60,000 times faster. Yes, you heard me right. Our brain does not think in terms of bullets, paragraphs, sentences. Instead, it thinks in terms of images and associations. Now, if I tell you to imagine an apple, I'm sure you would not be thinking about the spelling of an apple, or you would not be thinking in the terms of bullets and sentences. Instead, the moment I say apple, you would be visualizing the image of an apple, maybe green apple, maybe red apple, or maybe the brand apple. But you will be basically thinking about an image and not the sentence or paragraph. Yes, our brain thinks in terms of images, associations, and it thinks creatively. Yet, most of us, since our school days, we are very much used to linear way of thinking, where we think in terms of point number 1, point number 2, point number 3. But that's not how your brain works. I remember this was somewhere in 2019. I felt like I was running on a treadmill, running but not reaching anywhere. I was completely burnt out. I was completely deep into clutter. I could not decide what I wanted to do. There were too many ideas. I wanted to do freelancing. I wanted to, start a coaching business, but I was also in a very comfortable job. So my mind was full of clutter. And then, of course, I had been already using mind mapping for so many other use cases. I thought, why not use it for this critical decision of my life? And I started mapping out my thoughts, what I wanted from life, what were my strengths, what is that I really love doing. And of course, I had to look into the financial part. I had to look into, so many other things. And it was not a typical, pros and cons kind of, linear way of thinking. It was a beautiful mind map where I could visualize everything right in front of my eyes. There were the details, there was this bird's eye view. So everything was clear in front of me. And in just a matter of 3 to 4 days, I got my answer through that mind map. And not just me, I have seen people firsthand turning a blank page into a 400 pages of book, with the power of mind mapping. I have seen people struggling to find out ideas, to find out their niche, and just with mind mapping, the clarity emerged. I have seen so many of my students who were initially struggling to, organize their thoughts or retain whatever they have read, and now they say that it's with mind map, it's so easy. There's this another lady in a top firm who is a project manager, and she was handling teams across various time zones, and her life was anything but easy. Every morning she started with a lot of mental clutter, and it went on and on until one day she reached out to me and we started working together towards it. And we started making mind maps for each of her tasks. We started scheduling her days. We started scheduling her big projects and breaking them down and seeing it all in form of, mind map. And slowly, when clarity emerged, her days started to just flow like that. Now she no more needs, those to-do lists or traditional notes or meeting agendas. It's all there in the map, visualization right in front of her. And it's not just the story of that project manager Shally whom I'm speaking about, or not just the person who turned a blank page into a book in just 12 weeks with the power of mind mapping, or not myself who have been using mind mapping for more than 13 years now. It's not just about us. Our stories are not unique because top companies like Google and Boeing and many others have integrated mind mapping and visual thinking into their core problem solving processes. Why? Because they know when their teams see the problems in the form of not just reports and pages but in the form of mind maps, the solutions will emerge way faster than in the traditional case. And now I invite you to close your eyes for a moment and think about one task that you have been delaying or procrastinating for a long time, and it's really nagging you and you want to get rid of it actually. Think about that task. Now take a blank piece of paper, draw a circle at the center of the paper and write that task at the center. And now think about all the ideas that have been always there in your mind. Now it could be any task. Maybe you are wanting to write a book and you have so many ideas, like hundreds of ideas, but the ideas are all there inside. Unless you write it down and visualize, nothing is going to come true. So just start mapping out and see the way your brain starts thinking, and a lot of ideas will come up. And now once you map it out in the piece of paper, what will happen is you will start linking, okay, this is associated to this. So your brain will naturally try to form the associations that even you didn't know existed. Yes, that's the power of mind mapping. People who use mind mapping have reported sharper focus, greater productivity, and they seem to have a lot of creative ideas. And it's not something magical. It's a tool that anyone can use it in their daily life. Whether you are preparing for an upcoming event, or you want to schedule your month, or you want to map out your long-term vision, you want to start a new coaching business, you want to start any business for that matter. You are a busy professional who want to integrate into your workflow, you want to solve complex problems, no matter whatever it is. But the moment you start visualizing, seeing it, your brain tends to work faster and you get to the solution faster. So today I invite you to try mind mapping, and who knows, you might be just one mind map away from the next breakthrough. Yes, let's turn your mental clutter into clarity using this transformative tool called mind mapping.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Christina Aidy, a social psychologist and communication coach. Today we're going to be talking about the thing that most people struggle with, and that is nerves before speaking. Now, most people say that they have nerves when it comes to public speaking specifically. But I am very much a believer that public speaking should not be limited to a situation where you are in a room presenting to a large group of people. You see, public speaking is a lot more nuanced than that. So if you are a leader and you are presenting to your team, if you are at work presenting in front of your department, if you are leading a team meeting, if you are making content as a business owner, if you are in a sales call with a prospective client, these are all instances of public speaking. But so is some of these casual situations that many people struggle with, such as being out, for dinner with a group of friends and everyone turning to look at you, or being at a networking event, meeting strangers and being asked what you do for a living. These are all instances of public speaking that cause a lot of nerves and anxiety for many people. So if that is you, no worries. Let's dive into why this happens and how you can cope. So the first thing to understand is that nerves are normal. Everybody experiences some form of nerves. Now, we can think of nerves as a spectrum. And some people are on the lower end, and they may experience a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of nerves. Their hands might shake a little bit, their stomach gets the butterflies, but they're still able to handle it. They're still able to speak through the nerves, handle the situation, and present confidently. Now, other people may be in the middle, and they may feel like they're impacted by the nerves, where their voice starts to shake, maybe their body shakes a little bit more. They have so much adrenaline that they don't know what to do with it. Some people also experience more stuttering or more filler words as a result of the nerves. And then at the very, very end of the spectrum would be such debilitating nerves that you're not able to even proceed with the situation. So if you're at work and you need to maybe lead a meeting, if you're on the debilitating end of the nerves, then you wouldn't even be able to show up. You might even call in sick that day out of fear of doing that 10-15 minute presentation. So regardless of where you are on the spectrum, the first thing that you need to do is really be honest with yourself and process, where are you on the spectrum? How many nerves do you experience? How much do the nerves impact you? And just be honest, how much is your ability to communicate impacted by the nerves? Because the first step is awareness, and awareness is key. Think of your journey in terms of overcoming your nerves the same way that you would with a GPS if you were going somewhere. In order for the GPS to tell you how to get to the place that you want to go, so in your case, in order to know how to get to a place of speaking confidently without the nerves, you first need to know where you're starting from. The GPS needs your starting point. You need to tell yourself and be honest with yourself of where you're starting from, okay? And there's no judgment. It's okay, wherever you are on your journey, it's just where you are. And you will need to navigate to get to the point that you want to be based on where you are and what will work for you. You see, everybody's unique. Everybody has a different learning style. Everybody has different preferences. Everybody has different beliefs about their own capabilities. And understanding that and being honest with yourself about that is the game changer. Because if you know, for example, that your learning style is visual and you need to see something in order to really process how it works, then you need to tailor the way that you are learning to handle your nerves to include those visual components. Because if you are relying solely on something like podcasts and audio, you're really missing out on this crucial bit of information that will change the game for you. So understanding yourself, understanding where you're starting from is extremely important. Don't skip this step, okay? The next thing that you're going to do on this journey to overcome your nerves is really understand why the nerves are there. So when it comes to something like handling your nerves, you can really go on Google, go on YouTube, read some books, and come up with a bunch of different techniques to try to overcome the nerves in the moment. So you're about to record a video for your business, the nerves hit you, and maybe the technique that you learned about is to write a script and read the script. You can do that, but the nerves will still be there. Why? Because all of these techniques, all of these tricks are band-aid solutions. They are covering up the deeper underlying reasons for why the nerves are coming up. And that's okay, because understanding that is what makes a difference. Just like if you were to cut yourself, you would put a band-aid on, the cut. You would want to stop the bleeding. But you'd want to do something about the cut itself for it to heal. It's the same thing with your nerves. There is a deeper underlying reason why you are experiencing the nerves, and the right tips and techniques will help you deal with the nerves in the moment while you do the inner work to get to the root of the problem. For many people, the fear of nerves stems from a fear of judgment, a fear of being perceived negatively by the people that they're presenting in front of. So this can look like a fear of being imperfect. This can look like a fear of being seen as stupid or not competent. This can look like a fear of making a mistake and people judging you for the mistake, right? There's a lot of external pressure and a lot of external focus around what other people will think of you. This is a lot of self-imposed pressure that many people put on themselves. Because the reality is, You can make a mistake, but that doesn't mean people will judge you for it. For example, while I'm recording this video, any stuttering that I have, any mispronunciation that I have, I keep it in. And I keep it in intentionally so that when people are watching, those small moments, they hear it, I continue, you continue listening. It's very nonchalant, it's very casual. So what happens? You overlook it. You don't pay as much attention to it. Versus if I was to make a mistake, if I was to stutter, and I was to cut it out and splice the videos or get really, really flustered and worked up about it, that would influence how you perceive me. So really understanding what you are scared of and what is causing the nerves to come up will make a big difference for you. Because when you know that your nerves come from a fear of how other people will perceive you, well, then you can work on that. Now, there's a lot of mindset work that needs to go in to work like that, and that's okay. Because the first step is really understanding what the trigger is so that you can handle it appropriately. For example, if you're a parent and your child was coming home from school and they were just saying like, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to go back to school, you would want to get to the root of the problem of why aren't they wanting to go to school. Now you could give them the band-aid solution and say, hey, you're going to school regardless, or hey, I'll just pick you up early. But that wouldn't deal with the root problem. See, you would need to have a conversation with your child. You would need to ask them some questions. You would need to inquire about what the deeper reason is. Do the exact same thing to yourself, okay? This is what it could look like. You just have a conversation with yourself, journal it out, meditate on it. Just take some time to think about this. Again, coming from a place of honesty and no judgment. If you're someone who's experiencing nerves, ask yourself, what am I scared of? Okay. The first thing that might come up is, I am scared of being seen as incompetent. Okay. Go a little bit deeper. Why? Why am I scared of being seen as incompetent? Okay, think about it. Maybe when you were a child, your parents placed a lot of emphasis on good grades and, getting the right job and being seen as prestigious. So now you carry that pressure on yourself. Okay, go a little bit deeper. How do you feel about it? Do you feel like being seen as competent 100% of the time is realistic? Do you feel like that is productive? Do you feel like you have that expectation for others? Probably not. So if you don't have that expectation for others, why are you putting that expectation for yourself? Now, aside from your parents who put that expectation on you, does anyone else have that expectation on you, right? Ask yourself these questions. Go deeper. Go at least 5 layers deeper, and that's where you'll really start to get to the root of the problem. And when you get to the root of the problem, that's when you can start to work on it and eliminate it. If you're someone who gardens and you see weeds growing in the spring and the summer, do you just pick, the dandelion off the weed, or do you get the little tool and actually take the weed out by the root? You have to do the same thing for yourself. When you're experiencing nerves, it is not enough to just pick the top off. You have to get to the root and really understand where the nerves are coming from and why. Because it's in those moments that the real work changes and eliminates the nerves for good. Okay. So in the meantime, while you're working on yourself, while you're working on rewiring some of your belief system and changing the way that you approach these situations, in the meantime, you're also going to work on these band-aid solutions and the techniques to help you deal with the nerves. So depending on what you experience, the first step is really to understand what your symptoms are. So when you're nervous, what is happening to you? Is your voice shaking? Is your body shaking and your hands are shaking? Are you using more filler words? Are you losing your train of thought more often? What is actually happening? Because the solution that you need will need to be the right solution for your symptom. You see, you can go online and you can read a ton of tips and tricks and techniques, but if they're not handling the symptoms that you are experiencing, then they won't work for you. And when it doesn't work, it just gets more frustrating. So get really clear on what your symptoms are, and then find the right specific techniques to deal with that. So as an example, something that I see commonly is people who get nervous tend to talk a lot faster. So the nerves hit and they start to speak really quickly because they just want to get over it and they don't know what to do. So they just speak really, really quickly and get flustered. And then people are like, oh my God, this is too quick and I can't keep up. And then that makes them more nervous. So if that's you and you're one of the people who commonly experiences speaking faster because of your nerves, here's the technique I want you to try. Take a moment to notice how you're breathing, how you're literally breathing when you're talking and when you're nervous. For most people, they end up breathing in their chest and breathing very shallow, right? So they start going and almost hyperventilating. And your physiology is very, very connected to your emotional state. If you are nervous and you feel like you're hyperventilating, that adds to the nervous energy that you're already feeling. So instead, what you are going to do is you are going to train yourself to practice dropping your breathing down to your belly. Deep breaths. Not only does this fill you up with air so that you are able to speak for a longer period of time, but it also forces you to calm down. When you take breaths from your belly, your physiology changes. You are calming your nervous system. And that is perfect for when you are flustered, when you're nervous. What do you want to do to handle the nerves? You want to calm down. So belly breathing will calm your nervous system and it will regulate your speech so that you're speaking slower and more effectively. You see, if I'm talking like this and I'm talking out of my chest and I'm very, very flustered and I don't know what to do and the nerves are getting ahead of me and I force myself to breathe deeply, it becomes so much easier to slow down and to regulate my nervous system. Okay? The next thing that I want you to do to really start overcoming your nerves is to practice. Now, it might seem a little obvious, but it's a little bit shocking how few people actually do this. So the main reason that a lot of people feel nervous is because they feel unprepared. They feel like they are making up an answer on the spot and they want to make sure they say it perfectly. But they haven't practiced their answer. They haven't practiced what they're going to say, and that adds to the anxiety. So if you want to feel prepared, if you want to feel confident, set up your phone and record yourself speaking. And think about the situations that tend to make you the most nervous. Think about the types of questions people ask you that make you really flustered. If going to a networking event is really hard for you because you don't know what to say to people, practice. Set up your phone and record yourself speaking and practice your answer. What do you do for a living? How do you help people? How do you want people to get to know you? Rehearse an answer and say it at least 10 times so that you get comfortable and confident saying it naturally. Okay? So to recap, nerves are very common, but you need to get to the root of why you're nervous in order to actually get rid of the nerves for good. There's tips and techniques that you can do in the meantime, but they will continue to act as a band-aid solution until you are doing the inner work to get rid of the nerves for good. Now, I won't discount the band-aid solutions completely because there's still so much value in them in the moment when the nerves hit. But if you want to eliminate nerves for good, you need to take those band-aids and you need to do the inner work and do them simultaneously. And one of the best ways and one of the most effective ways is to practice over and over and over again so that you get those reps in and you build the confidence. I hope you found this helpful. Please reach out to me if you have any questions or need any support with any of the steps along the way. Best of luck to you all.
Hi there, this is Yash Tiwari. Today we are going to be having a conversation about what I like to call as the mindful speaking. In today's modern world, communication is becoming a very integral part of our lives. It has been since time immemorial, but especially in the globalized world that we are living in right now, every single field of career requires for you to have the basic communication skills. Every avenue of interaction or relation requires for you to have the elementary level of speaking skills. And most importantly, especially in the digital age that we are living in right now, even the smallest of interactions that you have in the form of comments or messages, they too are dependent on how well you can communicate your thoughts in a very short span of words, but in the greatest of impact. And this is what it all boils down to. Communication is not about a very lengthy speech which is delivered. It is about delivering something which creates an impact, which feels memorable, which is insightful, but most importantly, it's also intriguing and interesting, even when it just might be a few words. Think about it this way. When you go to watch a movie, let's say of 3 hours of length or 2 hours of length in the big screen, you don't just go there blindly, not often at least. Firstly, you check out a poster of it, or you even just watch a trailer of it or a teaser of it. Now, these trailers or teasers are barely 1 minute in length or 2 minutes in length, and yet they are able to inspire you, intrigue you, and interest you in watching that movie on the big screen. The point of matter is, it is not about the largeness or the length of a content which creates an impact. What creates an impact and gauges the attention is that how much you can possibly pack and convey even in a few words. And this is what the mindful speaking is all about. Now, there are two ways to communicate your thoughts in any given moment of time: the speaking, the ordinary communication, the generic way of sharing your thoughts, not even sure about whether the other person or the people, if you are addressing an audience, whether they are even interested in listening what you are sharing or even at all hearing what you are sharing. And then there is the mindful speaking, the mindful way of communication in which you are certain that every single word you are saying has such an impact, has such an insight, and has such an intrigue packed in it that it will most certainly gauge the attention of your listeners. Now, when you compare and contrast these two avenues of communication, the ordinary, generic form of sharing your thoughts, and then the mindful speaking, the mindful communication, that is where you get the answer to most of the concerns and troubles and issues in your life. What I mean by that is, think about your own journey so far and the roadblocks that you might have faced every now and then. Maybe a job interview, which, by the way, you had the most perfect CV for. On paper, your experience was absolutely brilliant, but somehow you did not even qualify to the personal interview round. In the group discussion itself, you were not selected because the other candidates, despite you having a great experience, the other candidates were able to verbally communicate better and got selected for the next round. Let's say hypothetically you even made it to the personal interview. Once again, the same scenario arises. You have the brilliant CV, the great internships you have done, the great jobs you have already completed, and you give that CV, the printed paper, to your interviewer, and they are fine with that. But the moment they start asking about who you are, what you can verbally share about yourself, you stammer. You feel stuck. You feel so afraid and anxious and nervous that you are not able to speak anything at all. Or even if you try to communicate, your words feel very incoherent. This was, by the way, a professional avenue. Maybe it is something personal, like you go to a certain movie or a certain show with your friends. And when you come back out of it, the 5 of your friends, and you of course included, you guys are standing and everyone is able to share their thoughts. They are able to share their ideas and opinions and critique about that narrative. You are the one who has the best opinions about it. You are the one who has the greatest of ideas about it. And yet, they are the one who are able to speak. You are not able to share your thoughts because the thoughts, the critique, the idea, it's bubbling in your mind. You have the words in your mind. Just somehow you're not able to articulate it properly, or should I say, in a mindfully impactful manner. And so, once again, you feel left out. And the list can go on and on and on about those moments where you had the best ideas in your mind, you had the best experience in your mind, you had the best of things to say. You just did not know how to exactly communicate it in the most effective and structured and impactfully mindful manner. This is what our conversation today is all about. How do you make sure that when you are trying to create an impact on, let's say, a person who is trying to engage with you in a professional capacity. They are interviewing you, or they are listening to your presentation, or whatever that might be, or even in a personal capacity, whether it is about the relationships that you have personally with people, your partners, your children, your family members, your parents, your loved ones, your friends, anyone really, even the new workplace that you join and the colleagues you desire to befriend and be a part of their club. How do you make sure that even in that first interaction that you have with them, there is something they remember about you? There is something they remember about the way you speak. And most importantly, there is something that they are looking forward to interact more so about when it comes to you particularly. So that is what we are going to get to learn about in this conversation today. Now, when I talk about the comparison between communication, or rather the generic basic way of speaking, and the mindful communication and mindful speaking, one thing that always stands out is the fact that communication itself is not a singular entity. The reason why it feels like it is because we have a very generic preconceived notion about it. At least most of the people have that communication is just about speaking out the words. It's just about writing down your thoughts, whatever they might be, and just putting it out and hoping that somebody will, catch a whiff of it and would want to talk with you further. In reality, that kind of conversation, that kind of generic communication, or those generic voices are only becoming a part of the noise. They are not standing out. They are not creating an impact. The impact is created by those voices that are coherent, that have a structure in them, and most importantly, that understand that in order to improve the way you communicate, in order to speak mindfully, it's not just something as a whole, like a singular entity you have to work on, but specific domains, specific dimensions that have to be respectfully and respectively worked out. The reason why I have used both of these terms, respectfully and respectively, is because you firstly need to understand that every single dimension of communication, every single pillar of communication, as I like to call it, has to be respectively, separately worked out, understood and improved, and then each of those respective pillars have to be respected as well. What this means is, you're not just saying that you have great ideas, you are also respecting the way you communicate. You're not just saying that your examples are great, you're also respecting the language with which you're communicating those examples. The point of matter is, the moment you start respecting and separating the various dimensions of mindful communication is when the process of improving starts. This is something which I personally learned a lot when I was recently working on my book, The Mindful Revival, Habits for a Lasting Change in 50 Days. I had one very clear idea in my mind. There is either the direction of, let's say, motivating my readers, telling them about all the habits they need to develop in their life in order to improve themselves, just through a generic way of sharing the, content or information or insights with them. Or I create a structure, a map work, which is of this divided format in regards to the various days over which they get to embark on the journey of mindfulness, or the journey of improving who they are and the habits that can make them a better person. And when that happens, when you try to divide a singular entity into smaller parts, it becomes easier to work out. It becomes more, we can say, efficient and possible for you to not just think of the concept of, let's say, self-improvement or self-growth or self-help as something very vague or philosophical, but something that is feasible, something that is practical, and something which is easily achievable. So on that optimistic note, let us also talk about what are the various dimensions of mindful communication you need to work out. There are 5 pillars I want you to take a look at. Now, think of these with certain words specifically: content, clarity, creativity, connectivity, and confidence. When you are trying to improve your mindful communication skills, firstly work on the content. You make sure that whatever you are trying to speak, it's not something too generic that even any person can simply Google up and they will get the results out of it. You want your content to feel authentic, you want your content to feel genuine, and most importantly, you want your content to feel specifically unique to you as a person. Not something that anyone can copy paste and read out, but something which aligns with your personal life experiences, your personal expertise, and most importantly, your personal areas of interest. Because when that is felt in your content, whatever you are sharing, that is when the audiences and the listeners feel like they want to genuinely listen to you. Secondly, working on the clarity. Now, the clarity is very specifically about two particular points. Number one, it being the clarity of your own mind, you knowing what exactly you are talking about, having the absolute clarity about the concept you're willing to share with your audiences, yourself first, and then secondly, the clarity in your pronunciation as well. Nobody is asking to make up an accent which might be not your own, because in that way you are just going to be compromising on the clarity of words. The clarity in the specific words you are communicating, it matters a great deal, because eventually the listeners, they care a bit about your accent, but not as much as the fact that whether they are able to understand what you're speaking or not. And they are able to understand what you're speaking only and only when the words are heard by them clearly. So secondly, you have to work on the clarity, but that of course leads us to the third point, which is about the creativity. Now, I'm not going to be defining creativity for you, because that is going to be the absolute opposite of what I want to convey to you. Creativity is supposed to be something that nobody can define for you. Why is it that certain speakers or orators or public celebrities, they catch your attention as opposed to everyone else? Because the way they present themselves feels so different and so distinct that you are willing to know more about them, learn more about them, and listen more from them. So you have to define it for your own self. What is it that can make you stand out, make you feel a bit different, not just in what you are sharing, but also the way in which you are communicating. It could be about humor, it could be about the specific, we can say, proficiency with which you are communicating in a language. It could even be about your mastery or your expertise with numbers and statistical data whenever you start speaking about a certain topic. Whatever that might be, for you to decide what your area of creativity is and being comfortable with that, not trying to, let's say, copy paste anyone else or not trying to mimic anyone else, that is what is going to make you stand out. Which leads us to the fourth point. Even when you are standing out, how do you connect with your listeners? So you have to make sure about a few things if you want to establish connectivity for mindful communication. Eye contact always has to be there. You cannot compromise on the eye contact. Your body language has to show that you are confident. Your body language connects with your audiences as much as your words, making sure that your stance is proper. You are standing with a very straight back. You are not hunched. You make sure that the moment you step on a stage, or even if you're sitting in a chair in front of an interviewer or even a friend, you have a proper disciplined body posture which communicates to your listener that wherever they are, in whatever position they are, you are confident enough to communicate with them. You are confident enough to share your thoughts and not feel too scared to communicate it to all the people who might be in front of you, or even if it might be just one person. And then, of course, a bit of a hand gestures every now and then, making sure that you feel less robotic and more human, and making sure that even your breath is maintained while you are speaking. Do not try to hold your breath for too long, because listeners can catch on that. If it is such an anxious person who is not even making sure that they are breathing when they are communicating, it shouldn't be something which is constantly caught on the mic either, but it has to be something which allows you to maintain a rhythm, a pace, even with your words. Wherever there is a moment, you can take a breath, making sure that it is not so long that it feels like either boredom or borderline anxiety, and not holding your breath for too long either, which certainly assures the listener that you might be anxious. So when the breath is normally approached by you as a speaker while you are speaking, is when you feel far more confident. But that, in fact, is what the fifth point of our mindful communication is all about. Making sure that confidence is fed not just in the way you are communicating your words, but in your mind as well. So in order to establish a sense of confidence in your mind about your own self, only one single rule works out. And I know so many people can share so many rules, regulations, tips, and tricks about it. But for me personally, the one specific point which always works out the most effectively in order to develop self-confidence is self-appreciation. You appreciate anyone and everyone on their smallest of works and, of course, the greatest. But the moment you start appreciating your own self as well, regularly, before going to bed, you tell yourself you'll try to do better tomorrow, but you are happy with the progress you made today. You wake up in the morning and you tell yourself, this is a bright new day and I will make sure that I live it to the fullest of my potential and I appreciate the person I am. These small affirmations, they might sound too philosophical or so psychological, but in reality, they work wonders because they kickstart a reaction in your brain which basically helps you stimulate the confidence you require in your day-to-day communication, whether it might be in personal avenues or it might be in professional avenues. So work on these 5 pillars of mindful communication, improve the way in which you share your thoughts, and most importantly, believe in yourself and appreciate yourself every day.
Imagine you walk into a room filled with people you've never met before. The air hums with conversation. In one corner, a person stands tall, shoulders back, a warm smile on their face. People naturally gravitate toward them, right? In another, someone sits hunched over, arms crossed, eyes darting around the room. They look uncomfortable, almost invisible. Now, tell me, which one do you think commands attention? Which one would you want to talk to? That's the power of body language. It speaks before you do. It can open doors or close them before you even say a word. Today, let's dive into the world of nonverbal communication and how you can use it to your advantage. Hi, this is Jaganavi, a soft skills and communication trainer, the silent influencer mastering body language from start. Let's talk about first impression. A professional was heading for a job interview. They were well prepared, knew their stuff, but as soon as they entered the interview room, something shifted. The panel seemed disengaged, their voice wavered, their shoulders slumped, and within minutes, they knew they had lost them. Now, contrast this with another candidate. They walked in confidently, made eye contact, greeted the panel with a firm handshake, and sat with poise. Even before they spoke, they had already won half the battle. Why? Because first impressions aren't just about words, they are about presence. And research shows that 55% of first impressions are based on body language alone. Have you ever judged someone instantly just by the way they carry themselves? Be honest, we all have, right? Let me take you a step further. I once met a CEO at a networking event. They weren't the loudest person in the room. They didn't boast about their success, but their presence unmistakable. Their handshake was firm but not overpowering. They maintained steady eye contact, nodded thoughtfully as people spoke, and never fidgeted. They didn't demand attention, they commanded it. That's the secret. Presence isn't about being loud, it's about being said. Shall we talk about confidence in posture? I knew a lawyer. She was brilliant, full of knowledge and skill, but in courtrooms, they struggled to make an impact. Why? Because their posture betrayed them. They would stand with their arms crossed, shoulders hunched, and often looked down while speaking. One day, a senior mentor gave them a simple tip: stand like you belong here. They started practicing an open stance, shoulders back, chin up, feet firmly planted. It wasn't overnight, but within weeks, the difference was striking. Their voice carried more weight. Their arguments felt stronger, and soon, judges and colleagues alike started paying close attention. So, your posture isn't just about standing straight, it's about owning your space. Do you know about the magic of eye contact? Yes, There is something powerful about looking someone in the eye. It creates connection, trust, and a sense of presence. But too little eye contact, it makes you seem distracted or insincere. But too much, well, you might come off as distant, or worse, that's creepy. You know the sweet spot? Aim for 60 to 70% of the time. And here is a trick. Use the triangle technique. Look at one eye, then the other, then at their mouth. It keeps things natural and engaging. You know what? I remember a time when I was negotiating a deal. The person I was speaking to kept avoiding eye contact. It felt like they were hiding something. I couldn't fully trust them. Later I found out they lacked confidence in their offer. Body language never lies. Think about the last time someone made strong, sincere eye contact with you. How did it make it feel? Seen? Heard? That's the power of this unspoken connection. Shall we start speaking with our hands? Yeah, that's called gestures. Have you ever watched a TED Talk? Notice how the speakers use their hands? Not wildly, but purposefully. Gestures amplify your words, make your message clearer and more engaging as well. Okay, now try this. Explain how to tie a shoe, but don't use your hands. Feels unnatural, right? That's because gestures are hardwired into communication. Let's break it down further. When you tie a shoe, your hands move in a rhythmic, deliberate motion. Crossing the laces, looping one side, threading it through. Imagine explaining this without moving your hands. It would feel forced and confusing, right? Now picture doing it naturally, demonstrating each step while speaking. The difference is night and day. You know, I once coached a speaker who kept their hands glued to their sides while talking. Their words were powerful, but something felt off. The moment they started using natural gestures, their speech transformed. They became alive. Let's hear a story of transformation. The power of a smile. A customer service executive often faced difficult customers. Their approach was neutral. They gave information, answered questions, but never smiled much. One day, a trainer suggested an experiment. Greet every customer with a warm, genuine smile and observe the change. They took the challenge seriously, and guess what happened? Customers softened. Angry ones became less aggressive. Conversations became smoother. That's the magic of a smile. It disarms negativity and builds trust. Your face tells a story and make sure it's the right one. Shall we talk about the science of connection, otherwise called mirroring? Ever notice how best friends or colleagues start to mimic each other's gestures and tone? It's called mirroring, and it's a powerful tool to build rapport. In a negotiation, if the other person leans in, subtly do the same. If they nod, mirror their nod. It signals understanding, creates a sense of connection, and makes people feel at ease. But remember, keep it natural and not robotic. Let's talk about something very important, body language in virtual meetings. With Zoom calls being the new normal, you might think body language doesn't matter. No, you have to think again. Sit up straight, it shows energy and professionalism. Look at the camera and not at your screen to mimic eye contact. Use hand gestures even on video. Yes, it makes you more engaging. Have you ever been in a virtual meeting where someone just, felt more present, more dynamic? That's body language at play. even through a screen. Always know your silent superpower is body language. So the next time you walk into a room, step onto a stage, or even log into a meeting, remember to stand tall, make eye contact, use purposeful gestures, smile genuinely. Because sometimes the loudest message is the one you never speak. Now, here is my challenge for you. Observe your body language today and see what silent messages are you sending. Thank you so much for listening to me today, and you guys have a good one.
Ever wondered why over 50% of employees feel disengaged at work? Why so many people, despite their achievements, feel unfulfilled, both professionally and personally? What if the problem isn't in the work itself, but in how we connect to our purpose, our values, and most importantly, each other? Hi, I'm Cindy, a TEDx speaker, author, and teacher, deeply passionate about two things. One, human connection, and two, unlocking potential in people. Over my 20-year-plus career, I've worked with individuals and organizations, and one truth has become undeniably clear. Success, whether personal or organizational, isn't about strategies or systems. It's about people, recognizing the human element, building connections that matter, and creating environments where potential can truly thrive. My mission is to elevate the way we lead, live, and work by putting humanity back at the center of everything that we do. My journey has always been about unlocking potential. As a former university professor, I worked closely with students, helping them see beyond their limits and discover their capacity to grow and lead. As the director of a university's cultural arts center, I collaborated with remarkable individuals, such as former U.S. Poet Laureate Juan Felipe Herrera. Working with him and others of that caliber taught me the true value of seeing and honoring people, their stories, their contributions, their potential. When we recognize and uplift each other, we create extraordinary possibilities together. This lesson has stayed with me, whether it's in education, leadership, or life. Connection is the key to unlocking the best in ourselves and others. Over 50% of employees report being disengaged in the workplace. They feel unseen, unheard, and undervalued. Organizations often struggle to connect with employees as humans, reducing them to metrics or roles. In our personal lives, many of us feel stuck, adrift, without clarity, purpose, or alignment to our core values. You see, the problem isn't just disconnection, it's misalignment. Misalignment between our actions, our purpose, between what we value and how we show up in the world. Here's what I've come to realize. Organizations and people aren't as different as we think. Both face the same fundamental challenge: lack of connection to core values, purpose, and directionality. This is why I believe the way forward is through human-centric leadership. Human-centric leadership is about putting people at the heart of how we lead. It means recognizing employees not as metrics, but as individuals with unique potential, passion, and needs. It's about creating environments where people feel seen, valued, and inspired to grow. At its core, it's the belief that when we connect with the human element, honoring our values, purpose, and connection, we unlock extraordinary potential in both people and organization. The data consistently points to a very simple fact: empowered employees, happy employees are more productive employees. Processes alone do not make for more efficiency. Human connection is what drives the efficiency. This is why there is hope. I believe the solution is simple yet powerful. We must reconnect to the human element. For organizations, this means fostering environments where people feel seen, valued, and aligned with a shared purpose. It means having growth opportunities so that people can develop their leadership and be positive contributors to an organization so that they feel aligned to an organization's mission and vision. For individuals, it means digging deep to understand your own needs and desires, clarifying your purpose, and aligning your actions to what truly matters to you. This is why I not only believe, but know that the way forward is through human-centric leadership, finding ways to intersect the very things that make us human with our work, with our relationships, with how we lead our life, with purpose and directionality. My passion for this work is rooted in my belief in potential and the power of connection. Over my 20-plus year career, I've had the privilege of teaching, leading, and collaborating with individuals from all walks of life, whether it was students discovering their capabilities or leaders learning to inspire others. I've witnessed firsthand what happens when people connect to purpose. Transformation is possible at every level. Imagine what's possible if we reframe how we lead and connect. Imagine workplaces where employees feel seen and valued. Imagine personal lives filled with clarity, fulfillment, and purpose. As someone deeply committed to this mission, I am here to remind you that you can make this vision a reality. Together, we can unlock potential within ourselves, our teams, our organizations. When we connect to the human element, we don't just transform individually, we transform everything around us. By focusing on the things that make us human, we can create a world where people and organizations thrive. See your own potential. Be willing to believe in your skills, your aptitudes, and make sure they are aligned with your values and purpose. Equally important, it's not all about you. It's about us. It's about building community. Make a point to see people's humanity and their potential and give them a hand up. Help them unlock their potential through kind words, through giving them assignments in the workplace that could strengthen their skills, by encouraging somebody to take a class, whatever it is a person needs. You see, the way we do it is we do it together by leaning into the things that make us human. Not only are we here to empower one another, we're here to elevate one another through mutually supporting each other and giving one another a the. Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Where is my voice in the new AI economy? This was a question I asked myself as I delved deep into what AI is. I wanted to understand the fundamental base of how AI is built, which is primarily on data. And as I zoomed further out from that perspective, that deeper perspective, I started noticing the implications that this can actually have to our businesses, to our society, to the world at large. So then I started thinking, how do I get my voice in AI, being a minority woman, a person of color, an indigenous representation of the data that has been primarily biased towards white, Western, industrial, democratic views of where big tech is actually coming from, and modeling our AI models off different platforms and different sects of society and subcultures of society really deters people like me from being involved in that discussion, because sometimes we don't feel that we belong. And so my challenge to everyone that I talk to about AI is how can we make AI more equitable, more democratic, more fair? And what does that look like from their perspective? Because we are all on a different journey. We all have different digital maturity. We all have different technical literacy. And how do we combine that so that we are actually all involved in the AI economy? You hear a lot of talk from politicians on how we are aligning AI, how are we regulating AI, but ultimately how AI shapes our society will be up to us. How we implement it, how we're gonna use it, what we feed it, and what we won't feed it. And that has to be a larger discussion that involves everybody's voice, not just technical people, not just politicians, but everyone that this impacts. And that will be everybody, because our technology has now become so ingrained in our society, from our social networks to our businesses, and even to how we interact with our governments when everything is becoming digital. And the paradox of that is with digitalization, yes, we are more connected. Yes, the promise of transparency and equitability will be built in by design, but that may not be the case with AI models. And that is definitely more complicated the more we ingrain it into how we harvest our data into the models. That changes how the model will behave over time. So the social technological implications of this does become much more complicated. And this is what got me into AI in the first place, because it was a very big question that made me delve not only into myself to understand where my biases are, where my limitations are, where my knowledge gaps are, but the same can be used, that critical thinking needs to be used in how we're going to be implementing AI moving forward into the future. So my main message is, are we building a society around technology, or are we building technology around society? And what does that look like for you? As an individual, as a member of society, as an organization, and then in a bigger picture, as a politician or a leader that is actually involved in shaping what this rhetoric is going to look like and aligning it truly with society. And the biggest and easiest way to do that is to involve society in that discussion through surveying, through feedbacks, getting voices heard, raising the concern, amplifying those voices, and rectifying it so that it actually involves them in that process and makes it more fair. And I can name 100 different ways that you can do that, but I would rather, in fact, encourage you to explore it yourself. What does AI mean to you? And what does fairness look like to you in terms of algorithms? If, for example, you're on a platform and you say something controversial against the masses, we have this horrible culture we call cancel culture. And within that cancel culture comes moderation. And if they automate that moderation, is your voice now being heard? In fact, if you want to bring up any point against how you're being treated on the platform or society at large, do you have an outlet for that? And are politicians protecting that right of freedom of speech? And that gets very convoluted when social platforms have more power and influence than the news and journalists that do the investigative work to uphold the truth in society. And even more so with institutions that have expertise in certain things and government institutions that should have authority over certain laws that has been bulldozed by social whims and social influence of sheep mentality of whatever is trending. So then we take a step back and say, in the advent of AI, are we upholding the democratic values that we still want to see in this world? Or are we, is this going to be a mirror to actually what is unequal in this world? What is unjust and what is unfair? And now that we know that, what are we going to do about it? There needs to be action. We need to be vigilant in our discernment on what is true and what is not. And whatever resonates with you and what you've self-developed, so that you don't need to be told how to think, but you can critically think for yourself and what and what you don't project out into the world, but can actually sit back and observe and make your own decision as to what is actually being fed to you throughout these social media platforms and technology platforms. Because this is the age of AI, but I like to call it actually the age of discernment. How do you know what is true and what is not? And the only truth that you can trust is yourself. But that self-awareness needs to be built, that self-resilience needs to be built, that cognitive resilience needs to be realized, because you're up against a lot of very powerful messaging, a lot of very powerful technology that is shaping you whether you realize it or not. And so it's very important to always take a step back and observe and realize that AI is not an all-knowing oracle, nor should it be. It is what we make it is what we shape of it, and it is what we decide that it should be for us and to us as a society at large. So it's a matter of asking yourself these very critical questions, because to me, that is not only internal alignment, it will eventually lead to societal alignment. Because you need to be engaged and active in this discussion. All of us need to be. And we all matter in this discussion. Because if your voice is not in AI, then the algorithms will work against you. Bigger scheme of things, I want reform in how technology has been behaving. Because in the way we are now is they can rewrite the terms and conditions overnight, and we are locked in and we can't get out. So we are basically hostages to the system. So if they decide, hey, by the way, which they have done, by the way, all Meta products, we're gonna scrape everything you ever have. It's our content. Your voice, your likeness, your pictures, any conversation you've ever had on our platform is getting fed into our AI. And you have basically 1 day to opt out, as in delete your entire account and get off. And so now we're in this kind of hostage situation with technology, where if we don't want to play by their rules, they're basically cancel us. We're basically out of the loop. And this is something very powerful in the business model called network effects. The more people are on the platform, the more valuable it is. And when people start building businesses and following and influence on a platform, it's very hard for them to quit, because that is a revenue stream. That is they spend years building a personal brand. They advertise on there, et cetera, et cetera. So when you have this kind of dependent relationship, it's very hard to negotiate with a hostage when you have really no choice in this. And what we're doing right now in the EU is we're trying to regulate it, right? We're trying to put GDPR compliance. We're trying to have AI EU Act, but it's still very loose, and it has no teeth, and it relies on a trust system that has been fundamentally broken for many years, because we've seen over time that big tech is only for profit. It's only for engagement, and it's only for their purposes, not society at large. And they're not taking any responsibility for what actually happens on their platform. In fact, quite the opposite. They have exploited the fact they have these platforms to shape politics and basically sell whatever influence they have to the highest bidder through adverbs and echo chambers.
Hey, this is Arthur Carmazzi, best-selling author and currently ranked as the world's #1 thinker in organizational culture. Now, there's a lot of talk about AI and everything these days, but ultimately, AI is awesome. The thing is, though, how is it going to make you a better person? And if you're going to be a better person, how can you apply that to creating a better organizational culture? So let's look at the idea of AI, human psychology, and, well, basically business success. So today we're just going to go through a few points and look at what are the possibilities of how we can be better humans through technology and, well, basically even just generally do more stuff and kind of achieve more things at the same time for ourselves and our organization. First of all, let's look at the idea that AI uses data. Now, data is, well, boring, right? I mean, come on, right? Who wants to look at numbers? Okay, well, there's some of you, but let's just look for the rest. Okay, so first of all, data is essential for AI to be able to do anything. Now, you can give it generic data, which isn't really going to be very helpful, but if you have real human data, then that's going to really be very helpful. So let's look at the idea that If you can get human data, and if you can get it on a real-time basis, that means data about your personality, data about your behavior, data about how you think, how you communicate, data about how you are motivated. All this kind of data is going to help AI to look at you as an individual, but more importantly, it's going to help to look at you as an individual and compare you to everybody else to see different synergies, different possibilities, different potential conflicts, all kinds of things. See, AI can see things that, well, human beings would take a much longer time to figure out. So, how do we get this human data? Well, let's look at the idea, first of all, that our communication processes are limited. Okay, that means that we are communicating based on our view of the world. Now, that's not bad because, well, that's what gives us our unique way of looking at things and our own style of innovation and everything else. But it's not everybody. So therefore, sometimes because we know that we are so right in the way that we see things because it's common sense and it's obvious, sometimes we judge people. And that can have an effect on communication, it can have an effect on trust, it can have an effect on all kinds of stuff, which, well, creates bad juju in an organization. So, one of the data points that we might need to have is our brain's genetic ambiguity relief process. So as a human being, if AI is aware of our process of how we get clarity, our genetic process of how we get clarity, then it's going to be able to use that foundation in comparison and checking with other people and other situations to see how we're going to best fit or deal with situations. Now, remember, AI is doing this for not just one person, but multiple people at the same time. So it can measure and mix and match and create ideal situations for people to, well, basically succeed and, more importantly, understand each other, because you've been there, right? I mean, you're working together with somebody and, you're trying to explain things to them and they go, yeah, I get it. And then they do something completely different. And then you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm surrounded by idiots. Okay, which, well, would basically kind of create potential bad juju, which is bad. Okay, so let's look at the concept of motivation. Why are we motivated? Well, ultimately, it is the anticipation of something important. I mean, that's it, right? Okay, whatever you feel or think or vision in the future that you will get if you do something, well, that you want anyway, okay, will motivate you, okay? So this is a fundamental human thing, okay? If we feel that what we do is not going to give us any real benefit or purpose or something connected to, our well-being, we are not motivated by it. But when we see something that outweighs the effort, we are motivated to work very hard. So, then let's take that concept and move it into performance measurement. Now, currently, performance measurement is, well, pretty boring and it takes a really long time, right? So first of all, we're not motivated if it's like actually I take that back. We are motivated like right 1 month before our performance review. All right, but what about the other 11 months or 5 months or whatever? So see, the thing is right now, because we are less patient than we used to be 10 years ago because of social media, etc., we need instant gratification, instant feedback, which means that if we get instant feedback on our potential behaviors related to the achievement of those goals, that's going to help us to connect back to something that we can tangibly see on a regular basis. So reverse engineer your objectives and your KPIs into behaviors, and you got something that you can literally measure every day. And that measurement can be gamified. So that means we can create these little motivation pockets on a weekly basis, because you have to kind of stop every week and start over. Otherwise, if you don't have a resurrection period, then some people are going to always get ahead and you'll never catch up and you get demotivated. So it's very important in any kind of gamification, first of all, to make sure that you have a resurrection period, okay? So if you kind of need a little more explanation, let's look at what happens when you play a game, right? You're shooting robots. You turn right, the robot kills you, bam, you die. Okay? But what if now you are resurrected? Now you have new ideas, new wisdom. So now you turn left, you shoot the robot, you go to the next level. So that's what we do, see? We learn from our mistakes and we have an opportunity to learn and excel. Okay? That means now we can consistently motivate. Why? Well, because we want to be good at our jobs. Okay? And if we have an opportunity to see the progress of what it takes to be good at our jobs, then we are going to consistently have that level of motivation. Now, remember that not everybody is going to be always good, so you have to have some strategies to help people to win honestly in order to help them essentially get on the list. So they go, whoa, I got on the list. And so now that means that they feel I can be the top, or at least in the top 10 or something like that. And if the top people kind of go a little bit lower, it's like, oh my gosh, why am I low? So they're going to try a little bit harder. So using some gamification strategies, you are not only going to motivate your people to consistently perform through better behaviors that will achieve those objectives, but you're going to get data. Data that can be used by AI to determine what's going on in you and what is going on in your head and what is going on with the people around you on a regular basis, and connect it to team dynamics and all kinds of stuff. So now you've got two types of data. You've got gamification behavior data, or gamified behavior data, and you've got emotion, or the foundation of your colored brain, or what we call the brain's ambiguity relief process, how you get clarity. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to basically take this and look at other things that we can do. For example, do you know that AI can read your emails? Well, you probably do, but if you didn't, don't be scared, because you still have to give it permission. All right, so AI can read your emails, it can read all of your communication, it can read all this stuff, and you know what? Data that can instantly, well, almost instantly, kind of compare to everything else that's going on to identify things that you're doing, things that you're not doing, things that could be dangerous, and things that could help you to basically be the boss. So all of this stuff is connected back to the idea that you want to be a better human. And as long as you also connect the idea of what kind of human you want to be, what do you want to be? What are your personal goals? And if you feed the information of who you want to be as a person into AI, combine it with this other data, well, guess what? AI is going to help you to achieve the kind of person that you want to become in the process of connecting it to better results for the organization, and more importantly, is going to be creating environments within an organization to support better organizational cultures. Now, we know that you know who you want to be, but what about the organization? What does the organization want to be? So if you connect back the values of the organization, the objectives of the organization, where the organization is on the organizational evolution level. So for example, the OCEAN tool is the organizational culture assessment tool that will measure your level of culture evolution. So if you know you're here and you want to be over here, well, if you put that into the data, then AI is going to try to achieve that goal as well, together with all of the people that are within the organization. Now, it's very important to understand that if you are a better version of yourself, you are going to automatically fit into the idea of a better organizational culture. There are 5 different facets of the ideal working environment that, well, basically we all want. And we know this because we've tested this in 58 different countries, everybody from CEOs down to janitors, and more or less it's the same stuff. Okay, so ideal working environment. Number 1, teamwork. People want to have teamwork. They want to be able to connect with each other, communicate with each other, not be stressed out by each other, and, well, basically help each other. Number two, trust. Trust means also being, able to be trusted to do your stuff. And, of course, being able to trust other people to be accountable for what they're supposed to do. Then, of course, there is clarity. The ability to see what you need to see, know what you need to know in order to, well, basically achieve your goals, be successful, do what you need to do, okay? Sometimes you don't have that vision, isn't clear, so therefore you're just kind of trying to do things and you're frustrated because you're not sure if you're doing it right. Okay, then of course we have the supportive environment. This doesn't mean just teamwork. This means that if I need something from the finance department, I'm not gonna have to fill out 17 forms and wait in a line and do all these different things and wait 6 months just to get, a new pencil, right? So it means that people across the organization, across the different divisions and departments are supporting each other. And of course, fun. People want to have fun, okay? They want to, go to work and actually enjoy what they're doing and, and have a good time and be human, right? So by having these 5 things within the organizational culture, okay, now we're able to connect that back to the objectives of the organization itself, okay? So human beings will want to have these ultimate ideal working environment. We know this, okay? So it's not going to be different because if you have those, then you add on, well, we want to be innovative, you want to be this, you want to be that. All of that is kind of like the plus things that the organizational culture adds on. So having the data of the organizational culture, of what you want it to be, where you want it to be, how you're going to put it together. Then, of course, the better you that can ultimately achieve these 5 things, have fun, be respectful, all these different things, have trust, clarity, etc. Being able to achieve this and give this to other people and connect on a level of where you're all working together to make bigger things happen and be personally successful in the process of achieving company objectives. All of that is going to be supported by all of this data, the behavior data, the data that comes from all of your communications, okay, the data of how you process information. There's some motivation data that, we also have some models with our emotional drive model. There's all kinds of things. But once you have this, okay, put in place, AI is not telling you what to do, but it is literally helping you to become the person you want in the process of helping the organization to achieve its goals and making an organizational culture that people want to be in, that people are excited when Monday comes along and they're going, oh wow, I get to go to work today. So next time, when you're thinking about AI and how it might take your job, think of how it might actually help you to be the person that you want to be and support the organization to help you succeed in it. This is Arthur Carmazzi, wishing you great success.
Everyone, this is Fatih Gencoglu. I am the Executive Director of Intercultural Dialogue Institute, Ottawa. As someone deeply committed to fostering understanding and collaboration between diverse communities, I am honored to be a part of Aidy, Ottawa. I have had the opportunity to work with many different communities and organizations to strengthen support system of Ottawa's diverse population. My experience is working with intercultural initiatives and professional development has shaped my belief that dialogue is the key to building a more inclusive society. Moreover, I have learned how crucial it is to have strong supportive systems in place for those adjusting a new life in their new country. So, and I believe the open communication plays an essential role in this mission. My work here at Aidy, Ottawa also includes some strategic plannings and overseeing programs in building some strong partnership with diverse organizations. Over the years I have been involved in many projects aligned with Aidy Ottawa's mission, such as Interfaith Table. It's fantastic because you bring lots of people from different faith-based organizations and then you talk about your culture, your beliefs, and learn from each other. And the other one is Creative Minds, a youth contest. It's mainly focused on the high schooler students. So it gives an idea and theme to students to work on and produce some artwork, social media content, and some social contribution project. And the other one is Meet Your Neighbor, which is another fantastic project that IDI Ottawa take initiative to kick off. It is basically designed to bring different faith-based people in your neighborhood to learn from your culture, your beliefs, over a dinner or sometimes a lunch. So it's very fantastic. This experience have reinforced my belief in the power of intercultural exchange in enriching both personal and collective growth. In increasingly globalized world, intercultural dialogue is more than a necessity. It's a responsibility for everyone, right? It helps break down the barriers and dispel some misconceptions and create meaningful conversation between people from different backgrounds. It allows us to build a feature that values diversity as a strength rather than a challenge. So looking ahead, I'm excited to the possibilities for IDI Ottawa to further its impact. Together, I believe we can create spaces where conversations are sparked, communities are united, and new ideas emerge. I look forward to working alongside all of you, all of the community involved organizations and members, contributing my energy and ideas, and helping to foster a culture of respect, collaboration, and shared purpose. And at the heart of intercultural dialogue, I mean not only my organization, it is the term of intercultural dialogue is a simple yet profound truth. We are more alike than we are different. By continuing to engage in those conversations, we can shape a world that is more empathetic, inclusive, and united. In every dialogue, we break down barriers, challenge preconceived notions, and create some new opportunities for understanding. Each interaction, no matter how small, brings us closer to a society where everyone can thrive. And as we continue on this path, we contribute a future where differences become source of strength rather than a division. So let us embrace the power of intercultural dialogue. Let us continue to build bridges that connect us, to listen with open hearts, and to act with compassion. Together we can shape a world where unity is not just an ideal, but a reality we live every day. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a great day.